My name is Akobe Damla, and I'm the co-founder of Zero Code Institute. At Zero Code Institute, we walk through our students from A to Z on how to build web applications without coding. So let's get into the tutorial for today. In here, we have this project management tool called Project Booba, and it's used to manage and track teams, track your tasks, and basically create projects, to make sure that the team is able to work cohesively. So I have a demo login here. So if I click on this, it will take you straight into the application. Then you can see that it has a nice interface, right? That has floating groups, it has projects, it has documents, analytics, and things like that. Over here, I'm able to filter my tasks between new, in progress, and completed. I'm also able to click on this to clear down the entire feature. I'm able to create notes, which has a kind of like comment, functionality. For example, I can say, hey, check out this task. And then I create a note. And then any task member that comes in here to see the project will be able to interact with that task. I'm also able to see documents, I'm able to see analytics and members. So for this tutorial today, we're going to be working together to create a feature. And the feature I want us to create together is the ability to create a task on Project Boba. So let's get into it. So I'm going to go into the back end of my bubble editor, which is what you're seeing right here. You can see the elements tree, you can see the input elements and everything here. And what I want to do is, it's a simple function. When somebody clicks on this new task button, I want a floating group to float from the right hand side into the bubble editor itself. And then it's going to have that feature for you to be able to create a new task. So let's go ahead to configure this. I'm going to need an element called floating group, which is somewhere here underneath. So let me search for my assets. There we go. So I can see floating group here. And then I add that. And so I can just call this floating group task. I'm going to give it a padding of 20 pixels all around. And then I just want this to float from the top to the bottom. So I'm just going to say float relative to both and center align. So it floats all the way to the end. But then you can see that I have a design where there's a bit of margin on top. So I'm going to effect that into here as well. I'm going to create this margin of 20 pixels on top. Now it's time to configure my floating group. Let's remove this fixed width, take this out, and then put a max width of 400 pixels to the right. And then I'm going to need an icon, which that icon, the purpose of the icon, as you must have seen when interacting with apps, is for me to be able to close, the element. So I'm just going to put this here and put the layout 25 pixels all around. And then I'm going to shift this to the right. So it's looking a bit tiny, so I'm going to increase it to 30 pixels. Then we'll give ourselves a gap spacing of 20 pixels in here. Next thing that I'll need is a text element, which I'll just put in here. And what this would represent is the task name. So it's just going to be a header. I'm just going to say task name. And then I can give this a font of 16 pixels. Next, I'm going to look for an input element, put it in here. And this would also be input task name. And extend that. I like to ensure that my elements have, the same height size, and 40 is actually pretty good. Also increase this to 16 pixels. And can make this border width to be the E gray. That's 6 E's. So I will group these elements together, and then I'll tick this box. And I'll still give it let's give it a margin, a row gap of 5 pixels. And also let's remove this placeholder that is here, since we already have that as the header. And just like that, we've created our first input element for this floating group. So we'll go ahead to create a couple more, so that we can effect the creation of the task. So I'll just copy and paste this element, pretty easy. And I'll call this group description. I also call this task description. And then for this, I would need another element, and the name of this element is called multi-line input. We'll extend this height by 100 pixels. And then yes, we have it there as task description. Next again, I would need a status element, because I would want to be able to track the status of my task. Is it pending? Is it completed? Is it a new task? So I want to be able to effect that in the status. So here I'm going to call this task status. And I will replace this element with another type, which is called a dropdown. So let's replace it. And then here we have the dynamic choices, task status. Then here it's an option set. So it's going to be task status. And I'll just select all options, current options display. Of course, all of this has been configured before this tutorial, because the essence of this tutorial is just to show you the creation aspect of of building a task element. So I'll remove the background element. Here you have task status. Next, I would like to be able to put a progress, which is going to be an integer. So this will be task progress. And this will be input progress. And then the content formats here would be an integer, because it's going to be a number. And what I like to do is, when you have input elements that don't necessarily need to take up the entire space of the width of the group or parent element, what we try to do is we try to group them in a row so that they can be side by side. So you're going to see that happen right now. So I'll group the task, status, and the progress together in a row. I would extend this row to the end. But then I would put a gap spacing of about 20 pixels within, so that they extend from one end to the other. So you see it's looking really nice and snug in there. Lastly, we're just going to put an element for the task members. And in here, I would like the opportunity to select, a task member, right, for the task itself. So who is the task assigned to, right? I want to be able to select that. So we can use a drop-down element as well in here. So replace this element type with a drop-down. so just style this up a bit and use the standard drop down. And here we want to choose users, and the users that we are looking for, we want to do a search for all the users in the organization in which, um, so of course we want to be able to see organizations where the users are part of that project. So let's see if we can do it another way from the way we wanted to do it before. Um, let's select projects, do a search for um, users. Which the okay. Project assignees. So now we've had to go back to the database in order for us to be able to see the architecture of the data before we can then, configure it properly. So as we can see there that it is assigned to a specific project. So I'm going to get, that project detail and then configure it properly. So project. Then we want projects as assignees. So it's going to be the current options first name, and then the current options last name. And that is all. So next we just want to grab the button here and paste that button here underneath, and you can say create task. So if you go to elements, you can center align it if you want, keep it to the right, or whichever design you would like to put here. And then maybe we just make this button, um, the main color. So just like that, we have designed, the task creation element. Now I'm going to group all of them and just do a bit of design so that it looks proper. I'll group all these elements in a column container, fit with the content, give it a row gap of 20 pixels, align to parent column, and then just spread this from top to bottom, and then we can say next. Yeah. Okay. So now it's time for us to configure the database. So what do I want to happen when we click create task? First, I want us to be able to create a new task, but then also close the floating group. So let's work on that. So here I'm going to say create a new thing, and the new thing I'm creating is a task. and I'm going to add all the fields. So I'm going to say add from the input drop down task. Um, so we did not name this last one properly. So it should be task assigning. Okay. Also the description. Students, we can leave that for now. Input elements. So that's input task name. I hope it's this first one. Yeah, it is. Yeah, for progress, you can put the input progress. Projects is going to be get data from page URL. Project. And status will be input task status. That was not named as well. Next, I would like to hide that floating group element. And also reset all relevant inputs. You can also reset the group. And that is all. Okay. So now we have configured, our task creation feature, but we still need to find a way to trigger it. And as we saw before we began this tutorial, we want to trigger it when we click on the new task button. So let's configure that very quickly. So when I click on new task, we'll edit the workflow, and then we're going to show an element. And the element we are showing is floating group task. Okay. So let us preview this in our editor and see how it works. I would I'll click on preview. Okay, you can see we made an error here, which is part of development. When you see an error, you immediately correct it. So we want this not to be visible on page load. So it's kind of hidden and it's only triggered when a button is clicked. So let me refresh this. Yeah, as you can see, nothing is here. So click on new project, call this project tutorial, add it to this project, click on the create project. So there we have it. It's on that project there. And when I click on new task, it triggers our floating group. So I can call this task, video editing, update description, edit 2 new videos tomorrow. I can put the task status as new, and I can put the progress as 5. Then I can assign it to this task member. And I click on create task. And there we have it. You can see our new task has been created here. Let me remove the debugger so you can see it properly. So we can see our new task here. So let's quickly create another task. Click on that. Call this social media promotions. Then call this new flyers to be created. You can put this as in progress and put this at 40%. Assign to the same task member. Click create task, and just like that, we have a new social media promotion. So you can see that this is a simple functionality that, of course, companies would require within their business to be able to create internal tools like this, which they can use to manage their processes to be more efficient and to work more effectively. So there are many reasons why companies require no-code developers. I mean, the primary reason is to be able to build MVPs, build marketplaces, build scorecards and products like that to be able to launch, to be able to require funding, and to be able to present ideas to their investors. But also established companies as well require no-code developers to build internal tools to help their businesses be more efficient, perform more effectively, drive down costs, increase revenue, and grow their team's communication and all of that. So this is just an example of some of the kind of applications that we'll be looking at creating within our ecosystem at Zero Code, right? So you can sign up for any of our cohorts if you're interested. I'll be glad to have you. So take care and bye-bye.